because there was an ad crisis which killed everything. I went from earning about $1,500 a month, 700 of that would go on rent, to earning $600 a month with streaming, with clothing, and then they never paid me. I realised that I wasn't going to be able to live in America anymore because I simply couldn't afford to do it because of circumstances that were out of my control at that point. I was convinced that my career was done.
Do you essentially turn it back into more of a hobby for that time period then, than it being like job mindset?
My whole mindset was, if it's over, then what is there to lose? YouTube is the future, I'm going to be a YouTuber. And it was probably the best decision I've ever made in my career.
So this is an interview with my brother and YouTube sensation, ImAllexx. So, when did you start making YouTube videos?
That's a really good question, to be fair, because I suppose it's debatable, really.
Right back to the start.
I made a video with a few of my high school mates in 2010. Because you can upload videos directly from the Xbox.
Hello everyone, my name is Assisted.
Ronaldo's actually a piece of shite in this game. I don't like anybody, as you can tell.
And that was one of the first ones we did, but I've recorded plenty of stuff that I think has gone up in like 2007, 2008 that other people uploaded for me. But that's when I would say I first uploaded videos to YouTube, but I'd say I properly started YouTube with the intention to try and make it into something probably mid-2016.
Yeah. So would you say you started YouTube just as like a hobby?
Well, yeah, it was always a hobby for me.
Yeah.
It still is, as much as it is now obviously a job. But it was one of those things where when I did start, it was literally just like I'd go out and I'd attach a GoPro to the front of my bike and I'd film the 40-minute journey into getting a Lucasade, and that would literally be it. It would just be I just liked filming things, and then I would put it into an editing project, and then I would just mess around with it really, and that's how it started for me as a hobby.
I mean, obviously I have grown up with you, so I know exactly what it was like with you making videos in the house.
Yeah.
Obviously you didn't have a massive audience from the get-go, so when you were making videos and they weren't really getting any views, was that not affect you at all? You didn't really care?
Well, when I was making videos and nobody's really watching them, obviously back then it doesn't feel like nobody's watching them because every view is so important. So if you get a video that's got 50 views, you're like 50 people have seen this. If you get a video that gets 150 views, you're like 150 people have seen it. And funny enough, it actually felt more important when it was so small than it does now, because you were grafting for every single individual view. Whereas now, you'll wake up and go, oh, that's got 1 million. Didn't realise I had 1 million. I had no clue.
It kind of goes over your head.
And it just goes right over your head. Because as soon as the numbers get bigger, it becomes less and less harder to see that as individual people. So for me, it never really bothered me when I was making videos, and I had no expectation. Whereas now, I have an expectation to do well, and I have to do well. So it bothers me more now than it ever did back then.
I remember when you first kind of had any type of success really was when you started your Twitch streaming and you were doing the FIFA streams. What was that like and why'd you start doing it?
Well, I started doing Twitch because the YouTube stuff wasn't really working out too well, and I wanted to move, and I love playing FIFA. Funnily enough, it's actually on right now in the background, so I still do play. I love playing FIFA, and I saw that a bunch of people who I'd seen on YouTube were just streaming them playing through the game, and it seemed like fun, you know, just being able to chat with a bunch of people into the game and build teams was enjoyable. So I moved over to Twitch TV, which was a live format instead of a video format, because I've been doing YouTube since 2010. It was around 2013 at this point, and I was kind of getting to the idea that maybe I'm not a YouTuber, I'm a streamer. And I moved to that, and I got about 10,000 followers in about a year and a half. And that was when it first really was like, oh, I actually do have something.
I mean, I specifically remember when Nick and Castro gave you a shout out with one of your live streams you were doing.
2018 Castro were huge for me back then. Even people I'm still friends with now, like Pieface. I suppose most of these people don't even remember now, which is kind of weird.
Obviously, you did the Twitch FIFA streaming, and you had the success on there with the 10,000 followers, and made you enough money to
buy a camera
and whatnot. So how did you transition back over to YouTube from the Twitch streaming, and why did you do that?
In the same way that I ended up on Twitch because YouTube died, Twitch failed. I remember it was so weird because I was at college at this time, and I had 7,000 followers, and in 3 days I gained 1,000 followers every day, and then FIFA just completely fell off. Nobody wanted to watch it anymore, and I've never seen anything like it. It was so confusing to me. It was the most promising time. I was like, by the end of the year this could be a proper job, not just like I could afford a camera and going out with my mates. Like I could actually make an annual wage off of this, and then it just completely died. So I quit for a whole year. I just focused on my college work in my first year of college, probably when I got my best grades. And then it became the holidays in the break between the first and the final year of my college course at Brockenhurst. And I was like, I don't want to go into uni and spend all this money for something that I could do at home. YouTube is the future, I want to be a YouTuber. And I just threw everything I had at it in the final month. And I went from 4,000 subscribers to 30 in the two months left of the 4-month holiday we had, which was huge. And that's how I ended up back on YouTube again, literally just because of the fact that I was like, I want this more.
Yeah, well, my next question is, how did you kind of find what started to work for you?
Honestly, it was really easy. I liked being a personality, so I was always going to do that. I don't like the idea of running something that isn't based on me. I want to be at the forefront, I want to be in front of the camera, which is also one of the reasons why I started to decide that maybe being a behind-the-scenes man, although useful to be a one-man team on YouTube, wasn't something that I wanted to do forever. I never wanted to be stuck behind the camera. So I decided to move onto YouTube, and I just was looking at stuff, and I noticed that there are a lot of people who were just picking holes and being funny in dumb things people were doing on the website, and I was always a fan of that. So I decided that I would try and put my own twist on it, because most of them at the time were all Americans, and it was all very similar humour. I was like, I want to do my thing with it, and I saw a gap that nobody seemed to realise was going to explode, and I told everybody who I knew then, all my friends who had 15,000, 20,000 subscribers, and I had 5. For me, they were gods, because of the fact that they didn't realise that they were about to blow up, whereas I always knew that it would end up being this big thing if I stuck with that genre. And it was a really enjoyable place. It was like a dream. I came across a style of video that I loved, and I was also like, not only do I love this, but I know that everybody will. And that's why I ended up doing it.
How did you get yourself noticed by the bigger creators? I remember the first time I saw you on kind of a massive channel was when you were in one of those pyrocynical videos. How did that kind of come about?
So I first of all just tweeted. A few people got involved in arguments about YouTube, really. And there was this app at the time called Discord, which nobody seemed to really be utilising. Most YouTubers seemed to have it. They'd have it linked up for a pay to get in system, and it was $5 to get into my now friend Elvis Alien's Discord server. And I really liked his stuff, I wanted to support him, but I also knew that being able to get closer to people like this, I would learn from them, and also they see what I'm doing, because obviously they're more inclined to, because I'm stepping up above to see if people watch their videos. So I placed the $5, I sat in the Discord, I spoke to people, made really good friends in there, and then one day he called me up into a voice chat. We spoke about YouTube for a bit, I sent him some of my stuff, he really liked it. he was one of the first people I think ever who said you could do this full time. And then through that I met a guy called Colossus Who's Crazy, who was also very supportive at the beginning, and then basically just made loads of friends, and then through friends of friends of friends, but bigger and bigger YouTubers. Then I ended up getting a shout out from iDubbbz, who at the time was probably one of the most popular people on the platform. And when he retweeted my video, it was about 2 AM. I uploaded the video at 9, I got back from college at 6 and finished the video by 9:30. Uploaded it at 10, and I was about to go to bed and he retweeted it and followed me back. And then because he had so much respect, then everybody followed me. And that was a really huge turning point for me.
Is this when you initially started to kind of blow up in a sense where...
I went from 4,000 to 10,000 subscribers overnight.
Yeah.
So I doubled what I had spent 6 years gaining in the space of a day.
And how long did it take you to get from the nothing to about 100k?
After the iDubbbz shout out, I then got to about 15, and then Pyrocynical came to me and was like, I want you to be in a video, because of the fact that he knew that I was going to have to go to uni and I wasn't going to be able to make it a viable income, and YouTube is quite probably a huge passion for me. And he reached out and gave me a platform, and I gained about 20,000 subscribers in 2 days from it, which put me on 30, and then I did a 30,000 subscriber month, then another 30, then another 30, so it took me 3 months from 15,000 subscribers to get to 100k.
And is this
crazy fast?
Is this when it started really becoming more of a job than just a hobby for you?
Yeah, after Niall's shout out, it went from being money that you could get working at any normal job, really.
Well, I remember you had a paper round for about a month or two.
Paper round was nothing, right?
Yeah.
But like, you know, if I was working at the pub like my friends were, I'd be earning probably the same amount of them when I had about 300, 400k views a month, and then I then it doubled to like 1 million, 1.5, and that's when I started earning what you could call real money that I could support myself with.
And also at this point you were still in college, so
And still at home, yeah.
And still at home, yeah, making videos and keeping everyone awake until about 4 AM.
Yeah.
What was it like balancing college and YouTube and the stresses that comes with that?
I think it was one of those things where I reckon I would have still been able to really, really ace college if I hadn't had my classes moved, because that also didn't help. Like we were moved around in our classes, so it was already trying to get used to that, and then also suddenly having a full-time job thrown upon you during college. And YouTube is not like any normal full-time job. It is a entire media company run by one person. I don't think people understand that. I was doing jobs that 10 people would be on a full-time wage for 15 times less of the money, with 15 times less of the time, and I had to go to college and stuff. But I would say college anchored in a time spot that forced me to work. I was so desperate to get out of it, and it made YouTube better. College still got my grades. I left a few months early to go focus on YouTube full time. I moved to Durham with a few other YouTubers to try and make it into a proper thing. But apart from that, I'd say it didn't suffer much. If I really wanted to, I could have applied myself to both. But at the same time, the YouTube thing was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and to throw that up would have been incredibly stupid of me. Because you go to college to get a job, and I was given a job, and everybody around me was going, do college, and I was like, aren't I doing college so I can get a job? So I didn't really get it, but now I think people understand.
I mean, obviously you eventually stopped going to college, focused on YouTube full time. I mean, I remember specifically you were
Still
having...
went to uni, so?
Yes, you did, but that's not the point, because you never went.
I didn't, no.
I remember like you kept having good sub days. I mean, there was one point where you were getting about 1k a day for like months, and I think this is between like the 200 and 250 mark maybe.
Yeah, December, because I moved to America.
Yeah, and that brings me on to my next question of America and moving obviously to a completely different country, away from everything and everyone. What was that like?
It was weird because I knew that I couldn't stay in England anymore because everything was falling apart there, and it hadn't gone to plan, to say the least. Everything was on a downward spiral. I was pretty convinced that I was just going to be one of those guys who gets 100k subscribers when nobody ever sees him ever again. But I was determined to not be that. I didn't want to just have it for a brief moment and let it slip. And then I met my ex-girlfriend at the time, who is now also a YouTuber. And she lived in America, so I moved over there with her. And I think that was a good experience for me because I learned a lot about myself. At the time, 18, moving to a different country, I learned what really makes me tick. It was great for creativeness. I became very creative due to the fact that I had nothing else to do. So I just put every hour into my videos. And that would be what I would do over there because I had no friends, I had nothing. I didn't live in a state that many people lived in. I wasn't in California. So it was depressing. I learned that having friends is very important because you can't just sit there alone and just focus on one thing. And I always thought that's what I wanted, was to do YouTube 16 hours a day every day, but I realised it's not enjoyable if you do that.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about that, but the culture really isn't that much different apart from everything's bigger. Apart from that,
and
it's
fatter.
all very normal.
I mean, yeah, and then whatever happened in America, you then eventually ended up coming back here. You moved back into our parents' house for a while and uploaded the infamous Back to Nothing video.
Yeah.
Can you just describe what kind of emotions and what was going on at that specific time? Did you think it
I
was?
thought everything was over.
Yeah.
I was convinced that my career was done.
Was there any specific reason for that?
Well, I had been with a merchandising company that took my entire year's wages, and merchandising for me is one of my big passions. One of the things that I tap into most other YouTubers don't tap into half as much. It's one of my favourite things to do. I love designing, I love the creativity of it, and also it's a huge money maker. And it was making more money at one point than my videos were, because there was an ad crisis which killed everything. I went from earning about $1,500 a month, 700 that would go on rent, to earning $600 a month with streaming, with clothing, and then they never paid me. So I was in a battle for a year trying to get rights to something that I owned and I wasn't being paid for. And then, as well as that, just everything, other part of my life collapsed because of the fact that the channel wasn't doing well, which made me depressed. I fell out with a lot of people because of the fact that I was depressed, and then I realised that I wasn't going to be able to live in America anymore because I simply couldn't afford to do it because of circumstances that were out of my control at that point. And I came back to England and I was like, this is the last thing I wanted. I didn't want to be back home. And at the time I had no money because I'd spent it all on flights and living there and trying to make everything work. So it was tough because it was one of those things where you don't think when you get your dream job that it's going to end. Really, nobody really thinks about that. But for me, it really was the equivalent of literally like going back to absolutely nothing because I had had everything stripped away from me completely over that 2-year period of moving out to Durham, moving to America. It was just bad news after bad news after bad news.
So how did you pick yourself back up from that low point?
Well, I uploaded the Back to Nothing video and I was convinced that it was like going to be
Like that was it,
but
yeah.
the response was so overwhelmingly positive from people and friends, and I like to be honest. I want people to understand that the channel lives and breathes through me, and it's not just some entertainment machine. And I had a lot of people reach out to me, a lot of friends, and I decided that what I needed to do was really find passion in making content again. And I had enough money to be able to live for 2 months. So I was like, alright, I will just knuckle down.
Do you
and the next day after, I just started making videos again. And I'd say I probably made one of my best videos the next day.
Do do you essentially turn it back into more of a hobby for that time period then, than it being like job mindset?
My whole mindset was, if it's over, then what is there to lose now? I might as well just do anything, do whatever. And I just changed my time mindset around, the way I've been treating my channel. I'm very lackluster with it, taking it for granted. I decided to just really start pushing myself again. And then George had a room free, and that was huge for me, being able to move to London. Not because of the fact that I worked with them, because I purposely made it so that I didn't just collab with them every single time to save my channel, because that would not be a good idea. You know, collabing with Will and George would have been a terrible way to keep everything going. I just decided that I'm going to have actual mates now who also do the same thing as me, people I could speak to about it, and that was more important to me than anything else, is having that. And the rent was expensive, but I paid it, and it was probably the best decision I've ever made in my career. I wouldn't go back on it.
I mean, you mentioned Will and George. Can you just talk to me more about the kind of friendship you managed to form with them and how that's helped in general?
Will and George are fantastic because they're down-to-earth, normal people, which is something that I definitely was missing, because a lot of people in the industry are loopy and crazy and terrible, and to find two gems in those two was a very big turning point for me. I had a very terrible friendship group I was in previously, and it was something that wasn't positive on me or my mental health or impacted me positively. Whereas when I moved in with George and Will, it was just like making videos for fun again, and it was normal, and we'd chuck each other in videos when we felt like it. It never felt like it was a chore. Everything felt like it was very seamless and enjoyable. And then if I wanted to play FIFA with somebody, I could. It was in America, nobody plays FIFA. There was nobody like that. So it was nice to have regained my life back, essentially, of what I left when I moved out of college. Because the one thing that I wanted to be able to have that life and YouTube, whereas I sacrificed that life just to do YouTube, and then it wasn't fun anymore. So I managed to regain both of those aspects back, and it made everything better for me. And I powered through on the channel as much as I could do, and those two helped me tremendously. They would always chuck me on their videos, which was always nice of them. But I always made it for me. It's one of those things where I didn't want to just chuck them in all the time, because of the fact that it would be too easy to do that, and I didn't want it to be easy. I wanted to get myself in a position where I know that if everything goes horribly wrong again, I can do it myself, because that's important for me. And those two helped me get in that position.
You've recently moved into a lovely new apartment in London with George. You've got the Internet Sensation merch, which is dropping next week, which is lovely to say the least.
Yeah.
The Campcast with James is going great. Just hit 1.4 million subscribers, so it seems to all be going well for you again now.
And we're going on tour this year as well.
Going on tour with George as well, yeah.
So
Could you
that's
just talk about what you've got going on right now and how well it's all going, essentially?
Well, hitting 1 million subscribers was a weird one, because I was on 500,000, and I set the goal for the end of the year. I was like, if I could go from 250,000 when I got back in the UK and double it by the end of the year, that's a successful year. And the only reason I was on 250k is because I had a really dead year in 2017. It was terrible. And then I had a 90k sub month in Christmas. So I pretty much went from like 40,000 subscribers to 210 in a month. So the year was terrible. I just ended it on a ridiculous high. And then it instantly dropped again. And I was like, well, that was that. That was cool. That was a nice month.
That's like the one high.
And then it was just straight back down again, back to like 2Ks. 2K months, and I just kept on honing the craft, and then got up to about 500,000, 600k, and then I started making We Need to Stop videos on other YouTubers, which I've been doing anyway. One of them went well with that title, and I was like, I learned a lot, and I was like, YouTube want more of that. They want to know mathematically that that's going to be in the system again. Whereas previously I was making videos like that all the time. It was nothing new for me. It was nothing different. But I wasn't on the SEO as much as I should be. So I made it something that YouTube would accept more, and then they just kept on pumping it out, and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger every month, and we gained 500,000 subscribers in 60 days.
Yeah, I remember back end of last year, you had about 500,000. You were on the podcast with James, and you said about hitting 1 million at the end, and he was like, no chance,
no way.
It's not going to happen. And then,
and it did.
Yeah, you got about 250k each month.
And now we've just hit 1.4 million.
Yeah.
And
we're only 3 months in.
It's still going strong.
Yeah. So I've already mentioned the Campcast. Can you just talk about that kind of dynamic? I mean, you've done a lot of podcasts in your time, some to various different successes.
Podcast is something for me that I feel like is important. It's not too much work, and it's fun. It's one of the things that I personally enjoy doing. I like being able to talk to an hour with somebody who I really like. I've done various podcasts. I've done one with Wild Spartans and Dioda Anthony, which was really fun. I really love those guys, and I really love the dynamic we had on there. And then I did one with my ex-girlfriend Anna, which I really did enjoy. And then James was God's gift, really. He's probably one of the funniest people, if not the funniest person I've ever met. He makes me want to do better, and he fully believes in me, which is something that you rarely get in YouTube, is somebody who is equally invested in what you're doing as much as you are, and it's hard to find that. And that's where most of the friendships I've had have fallen down, is the fact that most people are very selfish, and they're only really protecting themselves, and they only do stuff for you because it will pay them back in the future. Whereas what me and James have is so loose, we literally just turn up, mess around for an hour and post it, and people love that because they can see that that's what it is, and people really appreciate that, and that's just how we are normally. And normally you get a lot of YouTubers who aren't like they are on and off camera, whereas James is one of those people who is everything you can imagine he would be.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy.
He is great.
He is, yes. I mean, obviously he's now at, what, 600k?
600k, still doing uni.
Yeah, still doing uni, yeah. I mean,
Incredible.
He's struggling with that right now. But
guy. He's inspirational. I think a lot of people could take a lot from him.
I mean, I remember not long ago he was on like 200k, and he seems to...
He blew up.
You both just going together, yeah.
He does better than anybody I know, especially at his size. He's an incredible exception to the rule, and that's because of the person he is, and that's why he does as well as he does.
So I just want to talk about your Internet Sensation merch. I mean, I know personally you've been trying to do merch for bloody ages. I specifically remember you had a design that was on like a purple t-shirt that just had an A on it.
Yeah.
That was one of your first ones. How did the Internet Sensation merch kind of happen?
Oh, it started off as a parody. There were YouTubers who would just sell really terrible merchandise that was quite clearly uninspired, just like their content. And I thought it'd be funny to make a joke where I just copied them, but was more blatant with it, just like Internet Sensation. And the joke gave it value, and it was funny, and I didn't just make it to sell it, because I owned the only one for a while, which is why when people...
It's just that singular purple tee, isn't it?
A lot of people critique it for being lazy, but it was never meant to be what it is now. It wasn't meant to be the biggest part of my brand. It was an accident. I jokingly put it on in the video and went, look, I'm just like these guys, my merch is really good. And then people went, where can we get it? In the thousands. So I ended up signing a terrible deal, which is something that I've done many a time, and they took all my money. And yeah, they did really well, and now finally I managed to gain really control of the brand, and I have managed to up the quality, doing photo shoots now, which I'm glad, really, because of the fact that I haven't had it for a year and a half. It's allowed me to get me into a position where now I could do whatever I want with it, and that's what I'm going to do, because I want it to be something that outlives me, because I do think that there's so much potential with it, and I just want to make cool stuff that people want to wear, outside of just 2 words on a shirt. It's the springboard for so much more, and it's a big part of what I'm going to be doing in the future of everything, really. It kind of all tilts around this.
Well, this will lead me on to my last question of what are your kind of aspirations for the future, end of year goals with the merch, the channel, Campcast, everything you've got going on?
Well, there's so much happening all the time, and I'm one of those people who wants to be able to take every opportunity I can. I vowed that I would do when I came back from America, and I had a year without doing anything. And I think the plan is to tour the UK, and then I want to go on and tour America in 2020, do a comedy stand-up tour.
Is that with George?
With anyone. I'm not really bothered. I'll do it solo, I don't care. There's multiple shows, and I don't want to just do one. Me and Georgie will be touring the UK this year in October, and then next year I want to be able to go on tour either by myself, do some stand-up shows in Los Angeles, do some stand-up shows in London, or I want to go take the Campcast on a worldwide tour as well, as much as possible. Australia, America, England are the type of places that we're currently looking at in terms of doing all that. Along those lines, it's just to turn the clothing line into a huge store with so many options, be able to get warehouses, turn it into something bigger, and we're already on the road to do that as it sells incredibly well.
Would you like to see that kind of become its own thing, really?
That's the aim, and I think it will. I've already got multiple designers on it, I've got a team behind it, and it's just going bigger and bigger every single year. And it's great to be able to do stuff like that because there gives me so much options. As well as that, just with YouTube for me is always going to be the most important thing. I don't like the idea that people use it as a springboard. I'm not here to springboard off the platform. I love the platform. I want to be on the platform. I want to try and finish the year with 2.5 million subscribers. I think that's achievable. Last year we set it for 500,000, doubled it, 2.5 mil. And then I want to go on to end up within 3 years. I want to be on 5 million. I want to be able to break into the 10 millions at one point. I want to just be able to make stuff that people will want to watch, so they will see that. I would love to be able to go on to make something for any streaming platform, whether it's TV or Netflix or Hulu. I'm not too bothered as long as I can find a platform that will allow me to do what I want to do.
Just want to create more, really, yeah.
I have so many ideas. I write shows down. I'm writing 2 tours, and as well as a video 2 times a week, maybe even 3, depending. It's big, and there's so much more to happen. There's so much more to go on, and that's really all I've got at the forefront right now, because that's currently what I think is the most important things to be doing, and everything else is stuff that I could do with time that I gain after everything starts basically running itself. But that's the point. I'm just trying to get everything in to be self-sustaining.
That's perfect.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for sitting down and having a chat with me.
No problem. Thank you. Okay.
Nice.